How important is it to you that you connect with your audience, and what are you doing to ensure that happens? And this is a question I asked myself recently and was actually proposed to me by a coach, because I have all the tools, I have all the tricks, but what I was struggling with was letting myself be vulnerable. My name is Annika Spalding. I am an author, a writing coach, a workshop facilitator, and a creative mentor, and an advocate for women who have experienced trauma. And an advocate, yes, but I don't speak in place of women who've experienced that. I've been taking my brand in a slightly different direction. I haven't changed it completely, and I haven't been doing anything that is out of line with my cause or my values and beliefs. But I've been really putting myself out there, and what I mean by that is I've been creating content that is not really creating content. It's more about me telling my story, and it's not about me saying, yes, this is how I achieved this. Here's 10 steps to writing a book. Here's 5 steps to getting yourself a speaking gig. Hasn't been anything like that. Although I could write that stuff, I haven't been doing anything around that. But I've been interested in healing, and healing from my own experiences, but doing it in a way where I'm no longer holding in the pain and no longer holding in the stories and the secrets that weren't mine to begin with. And I attended counselling recently, and it has shaped and rocked and shifted everything for me. And whereas before I had all this pain on the inside, deep inside, wasn't feeling it, wasn't really acknowledging it, it's all been brought out now, and I'm talking about it. But of course, I am a public figure. I write, I have an online community, I have supporters, and it's important to me that when I talk about living your truth, that I embody that as well. I don't want to be saying all these buzzwords and phrases if I'm not living it too. And to an extent, I have been living it. But I'm also on a healing journey right now, actively healing, and it is beautiful, yes. It is very painful, but it's also necessary. And in order for me to really connect with my audience, I need to be honest about what I'm going through. So I'll let you know a little bit about what I've done. So I've shared my experience of being on antidepressants, of mental health, my experience of domestic violence, sexual abuse. I've touched upon these very lightly, but these are topics that I am being more open about and more transparent about online. And then it came to me the other day, because I've had such an amazing response, because my online community is incredible. Like on Instagram, they are fantastic. But it dawned on me, like, how many others have similar experiences. Now, when I've done the insights on my Instagram page, 2/3 of my audience are women, and the majority of my audience are are over 25, but majority are between 25 and 34. The majority of my audience live in Birmingham, which is the city that I live in. The second is London. And it interests me. It does interest me, because I feel like I'm walking the streets of Birmingham with women who've shared similar experiences. That where is their space? Where are there opportunities for us to talk about that? So I put up a poll on my Instagram stories, and because I was curious to see, like, how much of what I've been through have you been through too? So I introduced it, and I asked, and I made it clear that confidentiality was guaranteed, because it is. Because if you're sharing your story with me, it's not for me to tell your story. It's not for me to say, this person said this is what they've been through, this is where you can find them. That's not for me to do that. But I know that in sharing my own story, people feel like they're able to trust me and share theirs with me. And I asked certain questions about different types of experiences that I've experienced, but I also opened up the floor and asked my audience, have you experienced this? And there were just simple yes or no answers. And the results were incredible. I had over 100 people vote. No, over 100 people vote, but around 40 people, no, over 100 people watch, but around 40 people actually actively vote. And some people, you know, messaged me to give me further explanations of their answers. But the overall results are so... It's not shocking in a sense, because I know this as a woman of the world. I know what our experiences are like. I know that we have so many shared experiences. There's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of abuse, there's a lot of oppression. But my audience, my Instagram audience, this is them. So 95% of my audience have experienced some form of trauma. 70% of my audience have experienced domestic violence. 37% of my audience have experienced sexual abuse. 78% have experienced harassment and intimidation. 75% have experienced bereavement. 74% have experienced betrayal. 89% have experienced mental health as a result of their trauma. 59% have been too scared to tell because they feared they wouldn't be believed. And 100% of everybody who voted said that me sharing my story and my experiences has helped them in some way. Aren't those figures shocking and powerful? Because there are so many people online who have suffered, who are still suffering. And if you were to look at their social media, you wouldn't necessarily know that. If I didn't ask those questions, would they have shared that? Would they have told me that, or anybody that? Would they have been brave enough to say, yeah, you know what, this has been my experience and this is where I'm at? What it also tells me is that my audience have found me. I have found my tribe. I have found my community, because we are one. Those experiences are my experiences as well. Like, we have all that common ground. We have all that common, I wouldn't even say interest, but common experience. And I see you. I believe you. I am so grateful for you. And so I'm remembering this whenever it is painful for me to share those aspects of my story, when it is painful for me to be vulnerable and transparent, and to every time I'm sharing something that is an experience that I haven't spoken about before, it is bringing me a lot of anxiety. But to know that the audience appreciates it, but also can relate, and it resonates, and it's removing the stigma, it's removing the taboo around talking about antidepressants, it's removing the fear of being judged because you've said you've experienced this. That's what makes it worth it. So really, when you're connecting with your audience, it's really about how are you connecting with you? How are you connecting with where you are at right now, and being transparent about that? It's about vulnerability, and vulnerability is more than saying, I've had a rubbish day today, although that is a very good start. It's about saying, you know what, I'm a human being. I am not superhuman. I may look like Superwoman, but I am struggling too. I am finding things very difficult too. And it's about telling a story. Like, we are all the authors of our own story. We are the lead character in our own narrative, and we get to talk about that. We get to share that. We get to tell our story. And so tell your story. Your story is so important. Your story matters. Your story will show people what you've been through, and demonstrate your resilience and your faith and your hope and your self-love at times when you even thought that you didn't have it. We've all got a story, and it's not really for me to tell the stories of other people. It's really up to me to tell my own story, and that's what I'm doing. But in connecting with your audience, it's also important to not just pour out your story, but to interact with them as well. When my audience leave comments on my post, when they're sharing a little bit, I create space for them to ask me personal questions. How long have you been on those? I'm creating that room because I want us to talk about it. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's a bit scary. Yes, it's, me being vulnerable. But you know what? If me creating that space for us to talk about it openly helps you, it's helping me. I want it to help you. And I'm just so grateful that if there's someone who's never told, who's worried about not being believed or being judged because of what they've been through, and they've interacted with me on some way, or felt like they've resonated with my story or my content, or they feel like they're a part of something, that for me is huge. I feel like community is everything. Like, we have all collectively been through so much. We have all endured and experienced and struggled so much, but our experiences are not unique in the sense that we are in this together. We are in this together. And so to my audience, I just want to say a big thank you for always receiving me with love and support and understanding. And having done that poll now, I realise that me making that decision to move in the direction of my truth, sharing my story and being vulnerable, but in a very transparent, out there kind of way, has created space for you to do the same. And that will always be worth it. So I'm curious for those of you who also are building a brand, who are public figures, who are bloggers, whatever it is that you're doing, how are you creating space to connect with your audience? How are you connecting with them? What are you doing? How are you interacting with them? I'm interested to know about that. Share your thoughts in the comments below.